Ladies and gentlemen, as of this moment, 11:35 p.m. Pacific Time, the Ohio Health Chief orders polls closed. That's according to NBC4, NBC News. Ohio primary thrust into chaos after governor defies judge's decision not to delay election. NBC News again. 13 ABC, 4 hours ago, Ohio Health Director orders polls closed for tomorrow's election. Then you have the governor who tweeted out the following. Ohio governor announces polls will be closed Tuesday over fake apocalypse. And so the Ohio primary will be canceled, postponed for a later date. The polling locations in the state of Ohio closed on March 17th in order to avoid imminent issues with high probability of widespread exposure, yada, yada, yada. Okay. Now, the Ohio primary is closed. Not going to be, it'll be rescheduled for a later date. Florida Democratic primary is still going on. So, Florida is still going on. Arizona is still going to happen, and Illinois is still going to happen. Why? Because Democrats, they talk a big game, but when it comes to knocking out Bernie Sanders and making sure he's no longer a pain in the rear end, they're not going to stop. So here you have Florida is still, so Florida Democratic primary. Florida is weird, thanks to you-know-what. Its primary will be 5 hours ago. The week that changed the Florida Democratic primary, Tampa Bay Times. Florida 2020 presidential primary amid you-know-what. So, Florida primary still on, even as other states postpone over fake apocalypse. So, Tampa Bay Times. Florida is still on. Now, Arizona is still on as well. Arizona. So, Biden leads in Ohio, Arizona, as he looks to extend his primary edge. Biden leads in Arizona. Biden leads everywhere. Biden leads in Florida. So, Florida, Biden leads like 40 points. You look at Arizona, he leads by a wide margin, also 20 points or so. Illinois, over 20 points. Joe Biden is running away with the Arizona primary. So Arizona is still taking place. And when voting is a way to feel normal, Arizona primary, okay. So Florida and Arizona are still going on. Ohio, canceled. Doesn't matter. If you have Florida, Arizona, and Illinois, so Illinois Democratic primary, officials say primary volunteering quitting. Okay, so Illinois election to proceed as scheduled, as Tuesday officials say, pleading for volunteers. So Illinois, Florida, and Arizona will end Bernie's campaign. It's pretty much going to end Bernie's campaign. This is 11:38 p.m., I'm giving you the news right when it happens, and Ohio has been canceled. Now, if Ohio suddenly... Well, first of all, I'm a Trump supporter. People who watch me generally are Trump supporters, or who have they're on the left, they have a guilty pleasure. It's a guilty pleasure to watch me or whatever. Bernie's campaign is done. The knock on me on the left, which is hilarious because when you diss me, you diss yourself, is that people on the left, when they diss me, they're actually dissing themselves. When they say, well, you know what, you said Bernie could still win. Yeah, because guess what? There was an FBI criminal probe of Clinton. Not like a dossier nonsense, the FBI was after Trump and his administration. No, they weren't. They weren't after Trump. They were set up and framed Trump because they were partisan. They basically were extensions of the Democratic Party. Comey, Strzok, McCabe, Clapper, Brennan set up and framed Trump. That wasn't a real FBI investigation. The FBI is not there, neither is the intelligence community, to investigate whether a private entity in the DNC was hacked by another country, working with the notion. Think of the fantasy here. The basis of that fantasy is that Democrats cheated Bernie Sanders. They literally cheated Bernie Sanders. It was a rigged election. Debbie Wasserman Schultz was forced to resign. Say it slowly, Democrats. Debbie Wasserman Schultz was forced to resign in disgrace. Why is that? Why would the chairwoman of the Democratic National Committee in 2016 be forced to resign? Oh, that's right, because the DNC email showed that it was not fair and neutral. So when people say to me, sometimes I type in my name. I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on Facebook. But I have imbeciles who try to impersonate whatever. But when you have people saying, "Oh, H.A. Goodman said that Bernie could still win," up until July 5th, 2016, when the FBI stated from James Comey speaking on behalf of the FBI, stated, well, no reasonable prosecutor would indict. He never said there's no case. He said no reasonable that's a judgment call. Then Matthew Whitaker the day after said, I'm a reasonable prosecutor, I would indict. There are reasonable prosecutors at Judicial Watch who, in 5 years after the email probe began, 5 years, March 16th to March of 2015, the email scandal began. I was actually on The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell the day the email scandal began, the beginning of March, on MSNBC, if you could believe that. And 5 years, almost 5 years to the day, minus 2 weeks or so, Clinton is now fighting not to have this deposition that Judicial Watch will hold, asking her a million different questions about the email server, how top secret intelligence was transferred, all of this information. She had top secret intelligence on servers outside of the United States government, running on Microsoft Exchange software. That's according to ARS Technica. Okay, Politico was 22 top secret emails. So it's like, how do I explain this? Bernie Sanders was running against a person who should have been indicted. So when people say, how Bernie could still win in 2016 and show you Goodman, it's like, you were so weak and had such a defeatist mentality that you got steamrolled and cheated, and you're going to get cheated and completely stomped on by Democrats again. You love it. You love getting cheated and stomped on without fighting back, without sounding like a Republican or a Trump supporter, because you can't go there's a certain point that progressives or Bernie supporters or people on the left can't go, which is the point that Democrats would actually listen to. Bernie didn't bring up Burisma in 2020. Gee, I wonder why. Bernie didn't bring up Clinton's email servers in 2016. Gee, I wonder why. He's a part of the system. Bernie Sanders is like a pawn of the same power structure he talked about yesterday. He's not fighting the power structure. He's funneling votes, and the same thing with the pundits that Bernie can't endorse. He's funneling votes back into the Democratic Party. That's it. Democrats have zero intention of passing Medicare for all. They've been in the House for, a year and a half, close to 2 years now, or a year and a half. They're not going to pass Medicare for all. They don't care about it. It's a policy, whether it's feasible or not feasible, it's a policy that Bernie voters want, that Democrats say, well, look, if you vote for us, maybe one day in the future you'll get that. Meanwhile, laughing and saying, yeah, they'll never get it. We just want their votes. And Bernie's a part of this. He didn't change the national conversation. He basically put to bed especially all the biggest policies that he wants, especially Medicare for all, because they realize now that they could cheat and not implement anything that he wants, or not even try to implement anything that he wants. First of all, it's not even feasible, but let's say I'm wrong. You have a Democratic House. They haven't implemented Medicare for all. Why is that? Don't say because of a Republican Senate, because they impeached Trump and they knew that a Republican Senate would never convict Trump on there's no direct evidence that he was afraid of Biden. Are you kidding me? Biden wouldn't even win the popular vote. Joe Biden would not even win the popular vote. Joe Biden is winning because Bernie's campaign in 2020 is horrendous. His campaign in 2016 was pretty good. When I wrote 100 articles in The Hill, The Huffington Post, and Salon, that each one of those articles were signed off by editors and given a stamp of approval by editors at those publications. Bernie Sanders had a movement that resonated with conservatives, libertarians, all different types of people. It wasn't just, Medicare for all. That was just one policy along with a whole bunch of other issues, especially bringing home Americans from never-ending counterinsurgency conflicts with President Trump. Up until recently, look, if you're a president, you cannot predict the future. And this was like something that was completely unforeseen. Well, let's just say if people knew about it, they should have done something about it. Like the people talking about, oh yeah, it's going to be so horrible, and I'm this, amazing, researcher. It's like, well, why didn't you push to develop a vaccine or something? But anyway, Democrats talk a big game. If they're so worried about this now, they're closing restaurants, they're closing bars, they're closing businesses. Why didn't they do something about this? Why didn't they do something about this prior to it becoming this issue where they had to actually take the livelihood and take paychecks away from people? About 100,000 people in Los Angeles County will be losing paychecks, losing their businesses, losing their employment status. I mean, you're talking about a serious economic downturn where some people could actually, they're at a point where they might be homeless because of what the mayor and the governor are doing. But anyway, give me your thoughts below. The issue here is that Democrats, Hillary Clinton is going to be the nominee. Tomorrow will be basically the beginning of the end for Bernie Sanders and Biden as well, even though he'll sweep the remaining Florida, Arizona, and Illinois. And Bernie will drop out. Clinton will eventually. You're talking about somebody who's been waiting from the day she lost to run again and to be nominated. It's the centennial of the 19th Amendment. They're not going with Biden. Give me your thoughts below. Subscribe to H.A. Goodman's other channel right there.